What's up, everybody? This is Raphael Garcia here with Roy Billington, and we're back with another edition of the MMA Ratings Podcast. This week, we're going to be talking to you about a lot of different things going on in MMA. You know, it's funny, this may be the first time we've led a show with non-UFC content, and of course, we're going to start off with Bellator 120, which happened last night. It was the organization's first attempt at pay-per-view, and I must say, I was pleasantly surprised with what I saw. What about you, Roy?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Even from the Spike prelim portion of the card was pretty exciting. Uh, from bottom to top, I was really impressed with the card.
It's funny because I sat back and looked at it, and I myself wasn't anticipating the card too much. I wasn't really looking forward to it. I definitely didn't purchase it. I came home with actually I was out actually most of Saturday evening. So when I came home, I was going to go back out, but I decided to sit down and watch this card. And I was definitely pleased with the product that they put forth. Even I tweeted about it today that it was almost a comedic value to it as well. Once the show was over, that it was funny with some of the different things that happened. There's so much to talk about from this card, so. First thing I'm going to ask you, Roy, is who kind of caught your attention? What stood out from? We didn't even look at the main card yet. Let's talk about the spike portion first, and then we'll go on to the main card. But who kind of caught your attention?
Um, on the undercard, there was quite a few. Goichi Yamaguchi was pretty good. Um, he's kind of failed to live up to the hype in a sense, but again, he's only 21. He's got a record of 17-2, and then Mike Richman, he was facing a pretty solid opponent. I kind of expected him to lose this fight, to be honest with you, especially after his last performance where he didn't look very impressive at all. But he looks like he's steadied the ship and he's put in a solid performance again, and he's definitely one of the top prospects in MMA, especially in the featherweight division.
Yeah, I was definitely looking forward to watching him fight too as well. I'm always interested in watching Japanese fighters from just because they seem to have a tough time getting started and getting established in the sport. So I definitely enjoyed watching, and he did well. He did his thing. He went out there and he won the way he was supposed to win, which is exactly what I kind of look forward to each time these guys compete.
Yeah, I think it was important for Bellator that he got the win because when he was a free agent, there was a lot of speculation that the UFC were coming and calling. So I'm guessing Bellator must have put down a better offer. So they're kind of backing him as one of their young up and coming guys.
And that's exactly what they need at this point in time. What did you think of Michael Page?
Michael Page was pretty amazing. You know, there's a point when it stops becoming entertaining and it starts getting just not fun to watch. He kind of crosses that line a lot of the time. His skills are pretty amazing. The way he fights is just crazy. Looking away and standing in front of his opponent. He reminds me of Roy Jones Jr., but at the end of the day, he's fighting a guy that's not a great fighter. If he keeps that up and he starts trying to do it against Douglas Lima, it's going to be a short night. He needs to kind of readdress the way he's fighting. But all in all, it was a pretty impressive performance.
Yeah, I thought he looked really good too. But most of this card was filled with some guys who actually looked good. Other than the Czech Congo, who was the only established fighter on the undercard. Well, Martin Held, he looked very good as well. So he's kind of established in his own right outside of the UFC. And I think he definitely did good last night with his submission via armbar in the first round. Everybody, there were a good number of finishes. There was good action across the board. So I wasn't disappointed with what this card gave us as MMA fans. I think it was widely considered that this was going to be a bad night. That's how I kind of felt. Most people were looking at the event when it was started. So the results, I'm definitely pleased with, and I think it's something that they could build off of going forward.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Marcin Held as well. And like Page, he's been training with the London Shoe Fighters. So it's kind of cool to see that a team that was really dominant in the early stages of UK MMA are kind of having a resurgence with the likes of John Hathaway, Marcin Held, and Michael Page fighting out there now. Held
Yeah.
is another solid young prospect. He's only 22 still. He was only 18, I believe, when Michael Chandler defeated him, and since then he's looked pretty good, apart from a lone loss. So I think he is probably one of the most exciting submission specialists in MMA, and the whole philosophy that he brings apart when he talks about jiu-jitsu and how he applies it to MMA is really fascinating to me as well.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot like TJ Wahlberg. He often talks about how you can look for a submission, but you can still be very aggressive with it. And he's probably one of the more attack oriented grapplers in the sport today. That's something that I feel like the industry definitely needs because MMA and wrestling jiu-jitsu and wrestling kind of get a bad rap in the sport. So it's good to see guys coming in and wanting to get the submission, but they do it in a very aggressive and action-oriented way.
Yeah, you made an interesting point a few weeks ago about the lack of submissions from the bottom, and I think Marcin Held is one of the few guys who actually still is very very active when he's on bottom, and he's kind of bringing back a dominant guard game, which has been missing.
Yeah, it definitely has been. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the main card, and the main card was definitely, it was exciting to me, but it was also comedy to me as well because I feel like there whether you want to believe it or not, when promotions put together events, they want certain individuals to win so they can further storylines and kind of build future events off of those victories. Now that doesn't mean that these fights are fixed. No, I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that they have an intention for certain guys to win with the hopes of creating better events down the line. So looking at what Bellator put together for the main card of this event, of the three big fights, Quentin Jackson and Muhammad Laurel, Will Brooks and Michael Chandler and Tito Ortiz and Alexander Shlemenko, I can honestly say that maybe only one of those three fights went the way they would have liked it to go because everything went crazy last night. Like everything went absolutely nuts. And it started off with Tito Ortiz doing exactly what Roy said he would do, and that was tapping out Shlemenko in the first round.
Yeah, Tito Ortiz I think was a huge underdog, but I didn't really see why. Especially in Shlemenko's last fight against Brennan Ward, he had given up his back on numerous occasions, and I thought, like in my head, I seen Tito Ortiz taking his back and getting a rear naked choke, but Tito did take his back, but he didn't get the rear naked choke. He obviously got the arm triangle, but Tito looked awful. Aside from that, like on the feet, Tito looked absolutely abysmal. I was bemused by his post-fight antics. Uh, his speech after the fight was something crazy. But it's nice to see someone like Tito get a win, especially after what he's done for the sport.
Yeah, it was definitely like I was laughing when it went down. Like as soon as he took Alexander down, like you could see it in his face that he was like, "Oh, what the hell am I supposed to do?" And when he started going for the arm triangle choke, I was sitting here thinking to myself, "There's no way this is going to happen right now in the first round of this fight." But he looked like he was going to tap, and he goes out, and it's like I can't believe that Tito Ortiz pulled out a win in 2014. Like it just blew my mind because I felt like everyone knows when on the feet he looked like a big like just a slow old man in there. I hate to say it like that, but it looked like he just didn't have any answers. He didn't have anything. He didn't have any like he couldn't even get close enough to Alex to get the real takedown. So watching him sit there and tap out their middleweight champion like that was just something that I wasn't expecting. Like you called it, but man, he not only he put him to sleep, and he did it in less than 5 minutes. So hats off to Tito. I wouldn't say he's back, but man, he definitely did more than enough to get the win last night, and I was just just in awe.
Yeah, there were some interesting points that have been made about the size difference being the only reason Tito won. Um, I think it was obviously a factor when he got on top of Shlemenko. Shlemenko did look like a boy being pinned down by an adult, but it's important to remember that when John Jones fights guys, he's often significantly got a size advantage as well. Like during his title reign, he's mainly bet middleweights that have gone up to light heavyweight. So I don't see the size being a deciding issue. I see the deciding issue being Shlemenko's lackadaisical ground game, which he has shown previously. Um, I really didn't expect it to be as easy as it was for Tito, but it's really cool to see him back. And even though he's got the win, I really don't see anyone else in Bellator that he could beat right now.
Let me ask. Wait. Did you say John Jones has mostly beaten middleweight?
John Jones, yeah, he's beaten Fedor Belfort, Machida, Chael Sonnen, Rashad, who should be a middleweight. He's beaten a lot of guys that should be middleweights. Shogun should be a middleweight as well. The list goes
I
on.
think that kind of takes away from what he's done in his career. We're getting a little off topic though, but Vitor started off as a light heavyweight. Chael started off as a light heavyweight, and Rashad actually started off as a heavyweight. So he's fighting. I mean, he's like, I think that's kind of unfair to kind of detract what he's done, because I mean he's beaten some of the best 205ers that have ever fought in the sport. So I mean I think it's totally different than what um, Tito Ortiz did last night, because they were even talking about how Douglas Lima weighs more than Shlemenko does on an average basis. So if he's a small middleweight, then he's a small middleweight. That's on him for calling out Tito to take this fight. But I think it's unfair to kind
Yeah. No,
of make that same jump.
I agree with you. The point I was trying to make is that the size shouldn't be relevant. The fact that Shlemenko took the fight at light heavyweight means that he's a light heavyweight fighter for the purposes of that fight.
Yeah.
It's Tito's skill that overcame it, and especially with Shlemenko giving up his back again and then falling to an arm triangle. It wasn't down to size that he made those technical mistakes. I think Tito's size obviously helped a little bit, but on a skills basis, I think Tito Ortiz is a more skilled fighter than Alexander Shlemenko.
Yeah, it definitely looked like some technical issues there, because when Tito started to isolate the arm for the choke, it looked like Shlemenko had no idea what to do. So it was definitely a lot of technical mistakes there. And if you want to talk about mistakes, what did you think about the way Michael Chandler fought Will Brooks? Coming into that fight, I feel like no one was giving Will Brooks a chance to win. And man, did he make a point. Michael Chandler got off to a great start, securing takedown after takedown, and implementing his ground and pound that he's become known for. But once that third round came and Will Brooks got up from that first takedown and immediately took Michael down himself and then took it back seconds later, I feel like that's when the fight changed, and you can kind of see it in Michael's eyes.
How did you score that fight?
I had, coming into the fifth round, I had it even, and I gave Will Brooks the fifth round, even though I was expecting Michael Chandler to win, because I feel like Will Brooks did more across that fifth round than Michael did. I understand that Michael had the late surge for like the last 30 seconds, and I don't know if he mounted him right at the end, but he was definitely putting on pressure when he took Will Brooks down right at the end. But I didn't think he had knocked Will Brooks down. I thought he slipped. That's what it looked like to me. But Will Brooks got off that big slam in the fourth when he hit him with the belly to back suplex, and he took Michael Chandler's back again in the fifth round too as well. So I just feel like that was enough to kind of offset the surge that Chandler put on right there at the end. But I thought the refs were going to give it to Michael.
Yeah, I kind of pity Michael Chandler in the whole situation, because obviously he spent the last few months training exclusively for Eddie Alvarez, and the last minute he's thrown a new opponent who stylistically is a lot different than Eddie Alvarez. But at the end of the day, I would have expected Michael Chandler to win. But this whole defeat to Will Brooks leaves Bellator in a tricky situation, because Eddie Alvarez's contract stipulates that if he beats Michael Chandler twice, he's released from the contract, but he has to fight Michael Chandler twice. It's not Will Brooks, it's not the number one contender, it has to be Michael Chandler, who he beats twice. And now that Michael Chandler has lost, it's going to be very hard for Bellator to market a rematch with Eddie Alvarez.
See, that's what I want to see. I want to see if it has Michael Chandler by name, or if it just says that he has to defend the title twice before he's allowed to go. Because that's going to be a very sticky point, like you mentioned. If it does have Michael Chandler by name, then they're in a bad position. But if it doesn't, then he can. Because the way it sounds like right now, it sounds like Bjorn Redney has it in place where Alvarez has to defend the belt twice. Another issue is that he's promised to fight on pay-per-view as well too. So
Yeah.
does that mean that they put Will Brooks in a main event against Eddie Alvarez on a pay-per-view? And after this performance, last night, it unfortunately wouldn't be a bad idea from a technical point of view. It would probably be a great fight, but name-wise, would anybody want to purchase that bout? I don't believe so. So, what do you do to kind of bolster that card? I have a couple ideas. You could maybe make a Quentin Jackson Tito Ortiz, make that fight finally happen, and put them as as a co-main event or something along those lines. But there are some answers there. But yes, his win definitely puts Bellator in a bad position.
Yeah, I read a story on MMA Junkie this morning by Matt Erickson that kind of stated that the contract does name Chandler as the opponent, which makes things very interesting for Bellator. Um, I think they might have to. It says in the article that Bjorn's going to sit down with Eddie Alvarez over the next coming weeks to decide who he's going to fight next. But if the fighter does change, the contract will need to be redrafted, which is very interesting. So I think we'll probably end up seeing Alvarez Chandler 3 next, even though Will Brooks won.
Yeah, I don't think they do that. I don't think they embarrass themselves by doing that. I think they make the right fight, which is Alvarez Brooks, and then they allow Alvarez to kind of decide from there. Because I don't think they're going to allow themselves to be put in that situation to where they obviously look that bad, and at the same time where they are going to put themselves in a legal battle again. I don't think they do it again. So I think they kind of restart from there. Michael Chandler made reference to, there's some things going on in his life. Michael, oh man, I'm a big fan of his, and I think he's always going to go out, and one or two things are going to happen when he fights. Either he blows the doors off of somebody, or he puts on a great fight like he did tonight. So it's tough to see him take another close loss like this that many people thought he should have gotten the nod for. So do they put him back in the tournament again? He's going to beat any of their lightweights they currently have. Do they put him back in the tournament to make him build his way back up, or does he take one or two fights, one or two one-off fights, and then he's automatically the number one contender? This is another example of why they really need to change their tournament format.
Yeah, I think he'll probably put in a four-man tournament, just so it kind of alleviates any risks of him losing, and also gives him just 2 fights to get the title shot back. But I'm really interested to see what his contract is like as well, because I'm sure that he would have signed a contract with pay-per-view stipulations, just like Eddie Alvarez did, because he recently re-signed with Bellator too. So it's kind of interesting to see what's going to happen next for the promotion, because as you said, they're really in a bad place with the mix-up in the contracts and the pay-per-view stipulations and all that.
Yeah, and he just signed. I know he just re-upped his deal with he just re-upped his deal with Bellator maybe the year before last, so he's locked in for an extended period of time. So they need to do something to make this work. Looking at Will Brooks, man, this is like seizing the moment, type stuff right here. So I'm surprised to see what comes next, how he'll do against Eddie Alvarez. But man, he definitely seized the moment there. He could have walked out of there with a loss, but he made the most of the situation that put him in the main event.
Yeah, how do you think he does against Eddie Alvarez?
Um, Here's the thing though. I always thought that Michael Chandler was a better wrestler than Eddie Alvarez. So I see Will Brooks being able to get the takedown. Just on the feet, I don't think that Eddie's going to kind of give him the space to institute his wrestling like that. I see Eddie being able to outstrike Will on the feet, and I think it's just from just their first two fights, I feel like Eddie Alvarez is more technical on the ground than Michael Chandler as well too. Will Brooks won't be able to take his back as easily as he was doing with Michael Chandler. So I think he could give some definite what's the word? He could give some pause to Eddie in a 5-round fight, but I think Alvarez would take a decision there as well.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Eddie Alvarez should have a technical edge, but it's going to be interesting to see when Eddie Alvarez comes back, because as we've seen with TJ Grant, concussions can be a difficult one to recover from.
Yeah, it could definitely be a lot. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. So, like we're definitely going to keep an eye on that story as well. And then we also have the main event that we haven't even touched yet, where you have Quentin Jackson and Mo the Wall. Who do you think won that fight?
King Mo. But it's really sad to see the King Mo's clearly disenchanted with Bellator. He feels he hasn't been treated right by the organization, and I think he must be regretting the decision not to sign with the UFC that he had following the Strikeforce merger.
Well, no, he did sign with the UFC, but they cut him because of the whole when he called that woman a racist bitch.
Oh, I completely forgot about that. Yeah, he's really burnt most of his bridges down because he obviously doesn't want to be with Bellator anymore, just due to his comments last night. So I don't really see what he's trying to play at now by getting out of his Bellator contract. I guess World Series of Fighting might interest him, but other than that, I don't see what he can do.
Yeah, I know he's definitely like he was definitely upset because this someone brought up a point a while back that King Mo was kind of like he was the guy in Bellator and TNA before they brought Rampage over. Then they bring over Rampage. It's kind of like, oh, we're gonna forget about King Mo over here, and that's kind of been the situation from that point out. It looked that way even during the press conferences coming up to this fight here, and just with the post-fight press conference as well. It seems like Bjorn Redney has a much better relationship with Quentin Jackson than he does with King Mo. But King Mo was kind of the guy who was supposed to help turn that organization around. I remember when it was some big monumental deal that they were putting him in TNA as well, and then him fighting the cage at the same time. They're going to do all this cross promotion, all this cross branding that we haven't seen. So it's almost as if he's kind of fallen out of good terms with the promotion as a whole, and it's not his fault, because he's run into a tough opponent in Emmanuel Newton. Everyone else that's been put in front of him, he's won, and he's done so in a way that's like that they should, I won't say commend him for, but they should definitely understand and respect. Him. There's enough room for him and Quentin Jackson in this promotion, but it seems like it almost won't go down that way.
Yeah, I think skill wise, even King Mo has not declined, but I think he lost a lot of his athleticism after the staph injuries, the staph and his double knee injury. I think he's not performing quite to the level he has. I've seen some interesting points about how he fought when he was coming up in Sengoku. He's far more explosive, far more athletic, and even prior to the knockout loss, he was far more willing to take risks, which now he doesn't seem to do, which is kind of costing him fans as well.
Yeah, he's definitely a different fighter. Knee injuries and staph infection that almost killed him will do that to you, but I think he still has some value. I think I don't think UFC will come calling for him, even though he only has a 12-4 record. I mean, that's it, and we're talking about him like he is done. Um, he definitely he does have the ability to talk himself into a good fight, though. So that comes at a premium in the sport right now. So there may be some room for him there, but outside of that, I think he's definitely in a tough spot. And if Bellator cuts him, and I would definitely look down on the promotion itself for treating him the way they did. But you have to put some of the onus on him as well.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I'm looking forward toward this week's UFC 173. Is there anything in that card that really stands out for you?
Um, you know, Let me ask you this first: Are you going? Would you purchase this car? Would you spend $55 on this event?
Probably not. Uh, I think Henan Brow is always worth the money. It's like watching Anderson Silva in his early UFC career when he was fighting guys that weren't quite title ready. You still wanted to pay the money just to see a guy because anything could happen. But on that alone, I don't think it's worth the money, especially when there's a lot of other events around. I think it's slightly better than the Bellator event last night, but not by much. There's just like if I was to buy it, it wouldn't be for the main event. Guys like Jamie Varner, Robbie Lawler, even Daniel Cormier fighting on the card. They're what makes it worth buying, in my opinion. But I don't think it's a solid card.
I'm definitely looking forward to the main card. I like Takeda. Mizugaki and the Francisco Rivera fight. I think that's going to be a great one at 135 to open up the card. I think Robbie Lawler and Jake Ellenberger is going to be a big one. Ellenberger has a chance to kind of blow up the welterweight division and put himself in a spot where he can say, "Hey, I'm the number one contender after Tyron Woodley." So I think that's going to be a great fight to watch right there. I think he's going to look a lot better than he did against Rory McDonald. I think he's going to be a lot more aggressive. So I'm looking forward to that fight as well. Dan Henderson, Daniel Cormier. I'm not too interested in that fight, honestly. I feel like Cormier should win handedly. Hendo's always one H-bomb away from blowing somebody's face up, but I don't think that that's going to happen in this fight here. I think he's going to be tossed around a lot, and I think Renan Barão is going to defeat TJ Dillashaw. Let me ask you this: what's the bigger upset? Will Brooks winning over Michael Chandler, or TJ was to beat Renan?
TJ would be a lot bigger upset in my opinion. Renan Barão is pretty much by a long way the best fighter in his division. I think him and Faber kind of stand above the rest by quite a distance. But even Renan Barão has Faber's number, and I don't think there's anyone really in the division who comes close to him in terms of skill.
So if he walks through another Team Alpha Male standout, what's next for him? Do you think he just keeps beating guys up for as long as he can, collecting paychecks? Or, what's next for this guy?
It's a weird one. It kind of depends on what Jose Aldo wants to do next. If Jose Aldo moves up after his next fight, I expect we'll see Renan Barão move up to featherweight. But as it is, Renan Barão is the most exciting fighter in his division, and he's beaten everyone in his division. It's just the lack of contenders in that division that makes the division less exciting for fans. Because Renan Barão's bet all the big name fighters in that division.
Mm-hmm.
I think the onus is on the UFC now to find a good contender for him, build up someone that you like worth watching. But yeah, I think honestly he should stay in his division unless Jose Aldo moves up. He's winning and he's winning excitedly, so I don't see any reason for him to move up right now.
Yeah, he's definitely like number 2 on my pound for pound list behind John Jones. I think he's there. I think he's one of the best in the sport. I would like to see, they probably won't do it, but a super fight with him and Mighty Mouse, because Mighty Mouse was always one of the best 135-pound fighters, even though he was smaller than most of the guys there. I don't think Renan is as big as Dominic Cruz, so that was one of the main issues when Mighty Mouse fought Cruz. But I would watch that fight. If they booked that super fight and put it on like a Fox card or something like that, I would definitely watch that fight immediately afterwards. I think it would be an exciting action-packed contest from start to finish. But after that, I really don't. I agree with you. I think he's kind of going to end up hanging around, either waiting to go up to 145 or just beating guys that are within the weight class that he's probably already going to outclass anyway.
Yeah, I think the UFC is really lacking any major contenders in that division. It's been a while, the division's kind of stagnant. It's always been kind of a Team Alpha Male orientated division, but now there's not a lot left. Eddie Wineland got bet. Michael McDonald's been beaten by Faber, and he's also been beaten by Barão. There's no one really that I can think of off the top of my head that I'd actually be interested in watching fight against Barão.
Yeah, I can't either. Like the weight class is definitely at a standstill. And I know, what did you think about the announcement of Alex Caceres fighting Uriah Faber coming up? I think that's a tough fight for him. He's been on a roll lately, and I think that his momentum is about to come to a stop because Faber doesn't lose in non-title fights. He wins and he finishes guys when it's a non-title affair. So do you think that's a foregone conclusion that he's going to lose this fight, or is this an opportunity for him to become that next guy at 135?
It's truly a sink or swim fight, It's good. I like the matchup because the UFC have really given him to the Wolves. If he beats Uriah Faber, and even if he finishes Uriah Faber, he'll get a title shot and he'll get a lot of hype behind it. But with that, with the great opportunity, obviously becomes the great chance that Uriah Faber's going to do what Uriah Faber does and dominate him. But I'm interested to see the fight. I think he deserves the fight. I think there's always a chance that Uriah Faber could underestimate him. but I expect Faber to get the victory.
I mean, because he was sitting there like, because he was struggling against Sergio Pettis, and he goes from that fight to fighting arguably one of the greatest lighter weight fighters ever participate in the sport. So I think it's definitely a tough bout for him to go through. I'm looking at the bantamweight top 10 standings, and Raphael has earned his shot at the belt. But outside of that, Renan Barão has beaten Faber, he's beaten McDonald, he's beaten Weinman. Who else? He's fighting to TJ up next. Dantas is in Bellator, and Morales is in the World Series of Fighting, so that's out. And then the only other guys that are left are like Takeo Mizugaki and Ilori Alcantara, both guys who have been recently defeated by Uriah Faber. So, I mean, even beyond that, you have Viviano Fernandez and other guys who aren't necessarily in the UFC. So he really has done a lot of work on cleaning out that weight class.
Yeah, I think he's probably one of the most dominant champions now, alongside John Jones, of course. He's really cleared out the division. Personally, I'd love to see Dominic Cruz come back and fight him, but obviously, I don't think we want to see that. I don't think Dominic Cruz is going to return, but if he did, I'd love to see that fight.
You don't think Dominic Cruz is going to return at all?
No, I don't think so. I think it's been too long. He's had too many injuries. It's the only blemish on Renan Barão's record. Not even that. I know Dominic Cruz has never beaten him, but there's always going to be that question that if Dominic Cruz didn't get injured, would Dominic beat him? And I kind of tend to think that Dominic would probably have beaten Cruz, or Dominic would have probably beaten Barão when he was at his best. But now, if he comes back, he's obviously going to be shadow of his former self. But that's still a fight that would interest me.
Yeah, I just think that I just feel like Dominic's been gone for the sport for over 2 years now, and actually his last fight was against Mighty Mouse. So I just don't think he is an individual that we should even be really be talking about right now, just because of the simple fact that I kind of agree with you. I don't think he's coming back. I think he's been gone for way too long, but he's been put in a position where, unfortunately, his body does not agree with him competing at this level, and he may never get that shot again.
Yeah, that's true. I think comes down a lot to his coaching. I honestly believe that there's probably something fundamentally wrong with the way he's preparing for fights, that if he's getting injured that often. I know he can have a bad luck, but he went a long portion of his career without getting injured. Then all of a sudden his whole body starts falling apart. That doesn't just happen, I don't think.
Yeah, it's definitely tough to watch. I wish him the best, and I hope he comes back maybe once or twice to kind of end it on his note. But he was definitely a dominant champion when he was there. So let's look going forward. We already talked about UFC 173. What are some things that you're working on for this week, leading up to the fight?
Yeah, I'm going to probably reach out to Renan Barão and try to get an interview sorted out. I'm not too sure where he is right now. I know the fight's taking place in Vegas, but if he's in America, I'm going to try to give him a phone call and see what the story is with him, just in regards to this fight. But other than that, I'm not too sure what I'm going to look for content-wise coming up to this event. What about yourself?
I actually have a interesting sit-down interview with Eric Commander, who started MMA Ratings.net. Me and him are talking later on today just to talk about the sport, talk about the website, and just him as a kind of the mastermind behind the scenes. So we're gonna have a pretty good conversation. I have I also have another interview scheduled for next week with a local fighter in the Washington D.C. area, and I'm trying to talk to Frankie Perez as well, coming off of his first career defeat. He actually lost to Chris Wade on Friday at Ring of Combat 48, which was it wasn't controversial, but it was definitely a close fight. He lost via split decision, so that should be some good developments for both of those fighters right there to see what's coming next for them. So I'm going to be working on those, and probably working on a piece or two about UFC 173.
I really look forward to hearing your interview with Eric. That should be very interesting, especially looking into how the site started, because it's been going for maybe 7 years now, and it's going to be interesting listening to what Eric has to say.
Yeah, I've been working with him since maybe 2010. Honestly, it's been a while now that I sit back and look at it. So it should be a pretty good conversation. I want to pick his brain on everything going on.
I look forward to it.
Good, good. So thanks everybody for stopping by. This is Raphael and Roy again, and we will be back next week with another edition of the MMA Ratings Podcast. So check out MMARatings.net. Like our site, follow us across social media, and just try to keep your eye on anything that we're working on and stay supportive. Thanks again and have a great day.